Good evening. It's 6:35, June 23rd, and I'd like to call the meeting of the Urban Design Commission to order. May we have a roll call?
Nicole Ream.
Here.
Barbara Cash.
Here.
Edith McKee. Here. Art Clark. Allison Gordy.
Here.
Julia Foland.
Here.
Erin Hamilton. Here. Monica Sullivan is excused. Thank you.
Moving on to minutes, may we have a motion to approve the minutes of May 26th?
How do I do that?
So moved.
We have Commissioner Clark has made the motion. Do we have a second?
Well, I moved also, so.
Oh, I'm sorry, I can't see it. There we go. My apologies. So Commissioner Cash actually
All right.
moved and Commissioner McKee seconded. Must learn how to use technology. Are there any objections or corrections to the minutes being approved? Seeing and hearing none, the minutes are approved. Moving on to special orders of business, I believe we do have some disclosures. Can we go ahead and start going down the line on disclosures?
I abstain from voting on the minutes and will abstain from participating in item C.2 and item D.1, as I was not yet seated on the commission.
Okay, thank you. And please do request to speak on the tablet if you can, and then also state your name when you start speaking so we know who's speaking.
Got it.
Okay. Okay, and Commissioner Gordy?
Yes, this is Commissioner Gordy. I have been recused from cases 2021-0035 and 2021-0036 at the last meeting, and I will abstain from voting on them today.
Thank you. Commissioner McKee, do you have any disclosures this evening?
No.
Commissioner Cash?
No.
Commissioner Clark?
No.
And Commissioner
Hamilton,
nice to meet you.
nice to meet you.
Okay, and you do have
No.
some, no, you don't.
No, I do not.
I think you do.
I do.
Yeah, you weren't here for this meeting when we approved it.
I abstain from voting on the minutes and will abstain from participating in item C2, case 2021-0023, Eklutna Services, Inc., reconsideration, and item D1, consent agenda, as I was not yet seated on the commission.
Thank you. And I do also have disclosures. So I was recused from case 2021-0049 and will abstain from voting on the corresponding resolution 2021-004 on the consent agenda. Before I move forward, I would like to welcome Commissioner Hamilton and Commissioner Foland. Thank you so much for volunteering and joining us here on this board. We really do appreciate your service, and I hope you appreciate being here as well, so thank you so much. Okay, so back to work. We do have a second item here on the special order of business, and I believe we've postponed that, so we can... Okay, so we need, staff needs to speak to that.
Yeah, thanks, Chair Ream. So the next item on the agenda, C2, Eklutna Services Incorporated, reconsideration of the variance. A commissioner from the Urban Design Commission at the last meeting sent notice of intent to reconsider, but she's not present here now to make a motion for reconsideration. So the matter will be placed on the July 14th agenda, the next meeting of the Urban Design Commission.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to the consent agenda. May we have a motion to approve the agenda. We have a motion from Commissioner McKee and a second from Commissioner Cash. Would anyone like to pull an item from the consent agenda for discussion tonight? Seeing none, the consent agenda is approved. Moving right along. We are on to item G, public hearings. G1 is case 2021-0060. Petitioners Tara and Scott Heinscheid, I'm so sorry if I mispronounced that, are before us with a request for design variance from Title 21 to allow a fence to exceed maximum height in the front and side setbacks. May we have staff's presentation? Oh, yeah. I don't have- Before we have staff's presentation, I do have to read the ways by which the public can speak to the Urban Design Commission. So the procedure is as follows. After the staff presentation is completed, the chair will ask for public testimony. Persons who wish to testify follow the time limits established in the Urban Design Commission Rules of Procedure. Petitioners, including all of his or her representatives, have 10 minutes, and rebuttal time from that 10 minutes is allowed when it's reserved. Representatives of groups, community councils, PTAs have 5 minutes, and individuals have 3 minutes. When your testimony is complete, you may be asked questions by the commission. You may only testify once on any issue unless questioned by the commission. An individual may have appeal rights relating to any action the Urban Design Commission takes, except commission recommendations to the assembly which are not appealable. Appeals must be filed with the clerk's office within 20 days after approval by the Urban Design Commission of the resolution, which is the commission's final decision. A fee for the appeal is required at the time of filing. Proceeding on to case 2021-0060, may we go ahead and have the staff's presentation now?
Thank you, Madam Chair. The petitioner is applying for a variance from Anchorage Municipal Code, Title 21, Chapter 7, subsection 080H.3, maximum height, to allow a fence taller than allowed by code in the front, secondary front, and side setback on the north, east, and west property boundaries. The height of the proposed fence will not exceed 8 feet. Anchorage Municipal Code limits a fence to 4 feet in height when the fence is within the front setbacks and 6 feet when within a side setback. This request is being sought as the owner wishes to permit an existing 8-foot fence constructed along East 36th Avenue, Robbins Street, and along the western property boundary. The owner seeks a variance to provide both a physical and privacy barrier from foot and vehicular traffic, as well as reduce street noise. The subject parcel has frontages along East 36th Avenue, Robbins Street, and Hennings Way. East 36th Avenue is the front yard setback and subject to a 20-foot setback. Robbins Street and Hennings Way are the secondary front, subject to a 10-foot setback. Due to the frontages on 3 sides, the western property boundary is considered a side yard, subject to a 5-foot setback. The existing 8-foot fence installed along Hennings Way is outside of the required 10-foot secondary front setback and is therefore not included within this variance request. The Planning Department has evaluated the application and presents the following findings for the Commission's consideration. For approval criteria A, we do believe the standard is not met. The requested alternative does not achieve the intent of the subject design standard as constructed. The existing fence along the northern property boundary encroaches within the right-of-way of East 36th Avenue. East 36th Avenue is classified as a Class 1C collector in this area, seeing between 2,000 to 10,000 daily vehicle trips. Robbins Street and Hennings Way are classified as local streets, seeing less than 2,000 daily vehicle trips. The design standards for residential fencing exist to provide a uniform standard for expected neighborhood aesthetics. Constructing an overheight fence within a front setback is not in keeping with the aesthetics of surrounding properties nor the intent of code. While the applicant is applying for this fence variance to impede views of their property from passerby, such a fence also impedes their ability to view the right-of-way and provide natural surveillance. The need for an overheight fence within the side setback of the western property boundary has not been sufficiently justified by the applicant. This lot line abuts a neighboring parcel which currently serves as a single-family home. The elevation difference between these two parcels is minimal along the lot boundary. Some mature trees and vegetation along this boundary also serve to increase privacy and impede views into the subject parcel from the adjoining property. Additional trees and shrubs could be planted to provide further screening. For approval criteria B, we do believe the standard is not met. This parcel is classified as single-family and two-family in the 2040 Anchorage Land Use Plan map, as well as low-intensity residential per the 2014 East Anchorage District Plan land use map. The granting of this variance will not affect the classification of this parcel within these plans, and the existing single-family home will remain as such. However, placing an overheight fence within the front and side setbacks of this single-family neighborhood also appears out of place when comparing the aesthetics of an overheight fence to surrounding properties. This request conflicts with Policy 5 of Anchorage 2020, which states that rezones and variances shall be compatible in scale with adjacent uses and consistent with goals and policies of Anchorage 2020. Additionally, the requested fence height variance appears to conflict with the overall intent of the comprehensive plan to encourage improving the street-facing facades of residences and incorporate crime prevention through environmental design principles by providing natural surveillance of public spaces as defined in Policy 99 of Anchorage 2020. Policy 99 states, and I quote, "Incorporate crime prevention and other public safety needs into the design of residential and commercial areas, individual buildings, and public facilities. Use design standards to improve natural surveillance, residents' sense of ownership and control of the neighborhood, and overall public safety through appropriate environmental design." End quote. Justification of compliance with this standard has not been sufficiently provided by the applicant. For standard C, we do believe that the standard is not met. The proposed variance will not benefit the community to an equivalent or better standard. Although East 36th Avenue does see higher amounts of pedestrian and vehicular traffic than Robbins Street and Hennings Way, the constructed fence is within the right-of-way and does not match the aesthetic of surrounding properties. This has the potential to negatively impact property owners within the surrounding neighborhood by encumbering public spaces with imposing structures. The installation of an overheight fence does not appear necessary to accomplish the intended goal of providing both a physical and visual barrier from the roadway, and fence heights within surrounding properties do not appear to exceed 6 feet. For standard D, we do believe the standard is met. Granting of the variance will not adversely affect the use of adjacent property. There are no structure separation violations, drainage and runoff do not appear to be an issue in this neighborhood, and clear vision triangles do not appear to be affected per comments provided by Municipality of Anchorage Traffic Engineering Department. For standard E, we do believe the standard is met. This variance will not change the character of the R1 district itself, where this project is located, nor will it permit a use not otherwise permitted in the district. The requested variance is both dimensional and aesthetic in nature and will not permit a use not otherwise permitted, excuse me. For standard F, we do believe the standard is met simply because this variance request is not applicable to Americans with Disabilities Act and will not restrict or impede ADA accessibility or reasonable accommodation. For standard G, we do believe the standard is partially met, and the granting of this variance will not adversely affect the health, safety, and welfare of the people of the municipality. MOA Traffic Engineering does not object to the granting of this variance, and East 36th Avenue is classified as a collector, which is a higher volume roadway when compared to Robin Way and Hennings Way. However, the fence along East 36th Avenue is installed within the right-of-way, which is owned and maintained by the state of Alaska. The applicant shall resolve the need to obtain an encroachment permit to allow the fence along East 36th Avenue to remain in its current location as a condition of approval. The health and safety impacts to pedestrian and vehicles traveling along East 36th Avenue will be evaluated by the Alaska Department of Transportation and Public Facilities during their review of the encroachment permit application. And for standard H, we do believe the standard is met, and it's because this variance request does not involve a sign. And I will point out there is a bit of an error in my staff report, and it relates to condition number 2. The applicant has indicated that they do intend to relocate the fence outside of the right-of-way of East 36th Avenue. However, in my opinion, I still believe that condition number 2 should remain just due to the wording of it. It's, either resolve with DOT or relocate the fence to a conforming location. And this would hold the applicant to submitting proof that that fence has been relocated to a conforming location. And it will also state for the record that we did receive some late comments, 4 late comments, and those have been distributed to commissioners. But just to put the names on the record, those were comments from Joseph Barth, John Lime III, James L. O'Toole, and Larry and Marie Hanneman. And with that, the department does not find that all 8 standards have been met, and that standards A, B, and C are not met. Standard G is partially met, and standards D, E, and F are substantially met, and therefore the department does recommend denial of the variance. However, if after a public hearing the commission finds that all 8 approval criteria are met, then approval should be subject to conditions 1 through 4 as stated on page 7 of the staff report. And I'd be happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any questions? Commissioner Clark.
Yeah, I see here that there is a notice of violation, and in the notice of violation, it says there was a complaint entered about this fencing. Was that complaint from a member of the public or from some department at the municipality?
Through the chair, I can only assume where that complaint came from. All complainants do have anonymity, so I cannot tell you the identity of the complainant.
Okay, I think you've answered my question. It didn't come from a department of the municipality.
Through the chair, not to my knowledge.
Commissioner McKee.
My question pertains to item D that says clear vision triangles do not appear to be affected per comments provided by MOA Traffic Engineering. MOA Traffic Engineering did stopping sight distance triangles for people wishing to enter onto 36th Avenue. I'm just looking for confirmation.
Through the chair, comments provided by Traffic Engineering Department on page 35 of the staff packet indicate, and I will quote, the location of the fence as shown on the attached as-built appear to be outside of the required intersection sight distance triangles, end quote.
Thank you.
Any other questions for staff? Seeing none, do we have a petitioner or petitioner's representative here this evening? If you could please come forward and state your name, spell it for the record. You do have 10 minutes for your presentation, and you can reserve any of that 10 minutes for rebuttal after public testimony. And make sure that you do turn the microphone on when you're ready. So just what I'm saying, we can't pass it out to you? No. We are not supposed to receive anything more than 3 pages after, during the meeting. So if you can make sure that your microphone's on and speak into the microphone, and if you do speak and address the board in the room, state your name and spell it. I think you need to hit the... There's a button that looks like a little face with a voice.
Yeah, there's a little tape with a dot on it right there. There you go.
Does that work?
Yay, yes.
My name is Tara Henscheid, T-A-R-A, Henscheid, Hensch,
EID, and I would like to reserve 2 minutes. We are standing before you today to discuss our fence and approval to keep it. 3 years ago, we went into the municipality building with questions about fence restrictions, as municipal code is often very confusing. Permitting office told us that we could have a fence as long as it was 8 feet and that the community did not care. They helped us look at the safety triangles, and therefore we built the fence. They said that if it was on Hennings Way, it would need to be flush with our house, and so we did that. Once it was enclosed, there was a complaint about our fence, and we were told that we had to remove it. However, 2 sides stood for 2 years with no complaints. The municipal website on the fence begins with the municipal code, defines a fence as a barrier not to exceed 8 feet in height, which is constructed of one or more of the following materials, of a combination thereof, wood, etc. It also says that fences may not exceed 8 feet in height in a second bullet point. Finally, it says that property owners will dispute the matters upon adjacent lot lines. In defense of our fence, we need a variance, mainly for the protection of our children, ourselves, and our guests, as a 4-foot fence with 3 street sides would not provide adequate protection for our children from wildlife in Alaska, such as moose and bears. Last week, we watched a moose jump a fence of our neighbors that was 5 feet in height and attack their dog, chasing the wife and child into the house. We have had 2 bears on separate occasions on our porch prior to this fence. Since the fence has been built, we have no longer had moose in our yard, nor have we had bears on our deck. We believe that this fence is needed to keep them safe. Furthermore, a 4-foot fence on 3 sides would allow everyone passing by to see into our yard and provide opportunity to take things from us or our children or hurt them. Having an 8-foot fence would allow us to have the same protection that other people in our community have with their fences from other people accessing their property. Municipal code says in 21.7.080.H.3.A fences and secondary front setbacks that abut a street of arterial of greater classification may be up to 8 feet in height. It does not specify as how much greater the artery needs to be, but just states that it needs to be greater. 36 is greater artery, and it has even been stated that it is a class IC collector with 2,000 to 10,000 daily vehicles, whereas Robin Street is classified as a local street. Therefore, we believe that the 8-foot fence should be granted on that side. Furthermore, the road slopes much higher than our property line. In fact, it is even higher than the 8-foot fence at the first portion of that lot line. After discussing this matter and looking over the municipal findings, we found that in Section A, the biggest issue was that we needed to discuss it with DOT. After talking to DOT, they said that we needed to get the variance first, and then they would resolve the right-of-way with us, whether we chose to purchase the right-of-way or if we chose to move the fence back. We are willing to do either. We would like you to accept that they told us to go for the variance first and not be penalized by this decision. I would also like to point out that there are 3 bus stops within view of your yard. One currently we feel is adjacent to our property, but according to the city, they say it is across the street. I think this is an issue of semantics, as it is the same street. I did have 3 pictures of what you can see from each of the bus stops just standing on feet, but unfortunately I'm not able to show you. However, if you are sitting in the bus, you can see much more of our yard as it is elevated. Additionally, I have pictures of fences within the pin drop that was taken where all the letters went out for concern to other residents of 4 fences that are 8 feet in height, including the measurements of me taking them. They are all located as a front setback for a front yard as they are border the street line, where the municipality says that this is not afforded to other people, but indeed there are just in our neighborhood. Also, the municipality states that we need to have natural surveillance. But as I look around my neighborhood, anyone who has a fence, I cannot see into their backyard. If we are only granted a 4-foot fence on 3 sides, everyone will be able to see every part of our yard. which does not allow us to have the same privacy or protection for my children, my pets, and my possessions. And I feel that this is very unfair and unethical. As one of the other biggest issues in sections A and C is that the other residents do not have the ability to have an 8-foot fence, but when in fact they do, because they can apply for a variance as well, especially those along 36th. In my packet, I have a petition letter with all the residents that we've collected, many residents, those that were home at the time, some are on vacation, that said that they are okay with our fence and that they do not feel like it harms them or their property with it being 8 feet, including nearly everyone that was home at the time on 36th, both on our side of the street and the opposing side. I feel that since they are okay with that, that it should also be okay. I also feel that since our neighbors do not have an issue with the fence, and it says in meeting quote, well, it says on the fence handout that it will be taken up between residents, that matter should be settled between the 8-foot fence between our property line and theirs. In regards to the letter from Lynn McGee, this letter was sent from a person within the municipality. All the other letters were positive except for this one, and all the other letters were subjective, but this one were objective, but this one was biased and subjective. I've never met this person. I have never meant to do them any harm, but I believe that this letter should be thrown out since it grossly attacks us and it talks about things that aren't even related to the fence, and I believe that he is using his or she, their position, to influence the municipality who found their findings, as most of those findings are written off of this letter of objection. I'm also concerned that it was signed Senior Plan Reviewer and Department Right-of-Way section, but in actuality, the job title listed on the municipal website for this employee is Engineering Technician 4, and the department is Developmental Services, so I don't even feel like this letter is accurate or truthful, as I could not find those job titles that were signed by the letter in anywhere in the municipality. And I would like this letter to be thrown out. What else do I say?
You're good.
Sorry, I'm
Same time.
nervous. Can I just give you the signed petitions, if it's 3 pages?
Let me talk with staff real quick just to see if, because what I'm hearing is most of what you have are exhibits, not narratives. Is that correct, aside from this petition?
Yes, ma'am.
So can I have some input from staff on that policy? I've always been told 3 pages maximum, but if they're mostly photos, a petition, I just am not opposed to it necessarily unless the commission is, or that it's something we aren't allowed to do.
Through the chair, it definitely puts the commission in sort of a difficult spot getting information thrown on them at the time of the hearing that they did not have the option to review prior to the hearing. I guess I would hate to just throw it back to you, Madam Chair, but if you would like to accept those materials into the record, or you could accept the materials and postpone with review, but those would be my 2 suggestions.
Okay. Is there anyone else who would like to help me with this decision on the commission? Seeing none, I don't think we're going to accept the exhibit. Just because it does put us in a strange position, because I don't know exactly. When I see a packet with, a paper clip and a stack of papers, it makes it difficult because it will be a lot of info for us to look over. I do believe what you're saying is true. It would be, but I don't want to keep going on with that. But you do have 20 seconds left of your 7 minutes if there's anything else that you would like to say, and then we can open it up for questions for you.
I would just like to stress that I am really concerned with 4-foot fences on 3 sides for my children, as I will have to be inside They will have to be inside with me, or I will need to be outside. And my husband is gone 2 weeks a month serving the state outside of Anchorage, and so there will be no one watching them in the yard, and that is not safe with a 4-foot fence on 3 sides.
Thank you for your
Thank you for listening.
presentation. Let me see if do we have any questions for the petitioner? Commissioner Cash?
There it is, request to speak. Yes, thank you, Chair Rim. I have a question, and tell me if this is permissible, this question. And that is, instead of reviewing what's in your packet, you mentioned a petition. Can you tell me how many signatures were in the positive and how many, if any, were in the negative? Is that permissible?
I think you can ask a question of the petitioner for any information you'd wish to seek.
Thank you.
There were 23 signatures. They were all positive. I did not collect any negative, but I only had one person out of all the houses that I knocked on say that they didn't want to at this time because their wife and them were at odds.
Thank you.
If there are no other questions of the petitioner, then we will open it up for public testimony. Is there anybody here who wishes to testify?
Do I sit down?
Yes. We'll call you back up when the public testimony is over. Thank you so much. Hi. If you could please state and spell your name.
My name is Bertha, B-E-R-T-H-A, Dozark, D-O-Z-A-R-K. Art Clark only knows me as Bert. Don't ever call me Bertha. I live directly across the street on Hennings Way, 7528 Hennings. My house faces, the front of my house faces their yard on Hennings directly. And I, for one, hope that it stays the height that it is, because it secures everything in their yard that I don't have to see and don't need to see, and it protects their little children, which I love. Their little kids are like grandchildren to me. And just outside of the fence situation, these people are the nicest neighbors I've ever had, and I've lived there since 1992. When COVID started and all the toilet paper issue was arisen, these folks brought me a case of toilet paper. My grandson was cleaning my yard just a few weeks ago, and he was using my leaf blower, which is small, and Scott came across the street with this big thing. He said, "Here, son, use this." This is the kind of neighbors they are. They're caring. Their dogs are in an electric fence area where no one is in danger from them. They're just the best neighbors you could possibly have. And they have done everything according to what they thought was right. And this is the way they live their life. And so I hope that you really consider not making major changes for them. That's really all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any question for Bert? Okay, thank you for your testimony. Is there anyone else here? Oh, did you have? No questions. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Looks like we have somebody else here who wishes to testify. Go ahead and state your name and spell it for the record.
Yes, my name is Tommy, T-O-M-M-Y, Stapleton, S-T-A-P-L-E-T-O-N, Suffix Jr., just so you know. Tara and Scott, my house is 7511, so it sits just, I would say, south of them. And their adjacent fence is in between where on my backside of their fence, which is part of my fence. And many a times we've had, different type of animals. Moose is always, present in my backyard. I don't really have a fence. So their fence is kind of like my fence in a way, because their kids are really sweet. And, you know, being that I work in communications and I come around the corner from Robin over into Hennings, there's no obstruction of view. And I drive a pretty decent, decent 2-ton van. And so, you know, but if their fence was any lower than 8 feet, it would be a privacy concern for my house and my wife and my family. So having that fence there, I can't see in their yard and they can't see into mine. But if it was any lower, I can definitely see from inside of my house into theirs, and, you know, vice versa from them into mine. Their kids are perfectly protected with that type of fence. If it was any lower, then I'd be very concerned as a neighbor, as a family, as a husband for their kids. Their dogs and everything that they have within their area of their house has always been secured. We haven't had no issues with, you know, crime or anything in our street, because everyone pretty much watches everybody around them. So Tara and Scott has never had no problems. We haven't had no problems with them. Their dogs and everything is within their property. If the fence was any lower, then we could see absolutely everything within their fence, all their materials, whatever they have, and I believe that would be an eyesore for different type of public to see that. So it keeps sexual predators out. It keeps their family secure, wildlife as well. That's a big concern. Anything lower than an 8-foot fence, that's a very concern, and I hope that you guys would consider that.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Hi there.
I'm a little short. My name is Shannon Stapleton, Shannon, Stapleton, Stapleton. I am the wife of Tommy Stapleton. And Tara and Scott are my next door neighbors, and we live right next to them. And I just want to say I'm really thankful for them and everybody else that is here tonight with us supporting this idea and everything. I really support their fence for the fact that when we first moved there, it was really hard to divide the land because it's like so connected, where it's like, which part is our yard? So the fence actually helped separate equally, which I really liked. It helped saved us with our finances as well. And like they were saying, the fence is, you know, I understand that there's a code that it has to be a certain foot, but when you drive, you can still see some stuff in the yard. It's not like completely tall where it's like you can't see anything. So I just want to say that I'm really thankful that the fence is there, and I hope that it doesn't get taken down, because it's not a threat to us. They've done nothing to make us feel uncomfortable, weirded out, or anything. So I just wanted to put that input in. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to repeat myself. Make sure that you state your name and spell it for the record. Thank you.
John Lime, Johnlime. I am the third. I live directly across Robin from them, so they're on one side of the entrance into the neighborhood. I'm on the other side of the entrance into the neighborhood. And if it wasn't them dealing with this, honestly, I was looking at putting a fence in on my side with the same issues. And as I read the same municipal website and documents, I would be having the exact same issues they're having right now, with it being too close to something or too tall for someone and whatnot. So I get where they're coming from, and I would suggest that the muni may want to update their documents and their websites to make it clearer for homeowners to put in fences or other modifications to their yards. Also, your staff mentioned that shrubs or trees being planted would be an option for creating visual barriers into the yard, and I would have to dispute that, because I know on my yard, I know where my gas line, water line, electric line run, and to do what he suggested on my property, well, in 5 years, I'd be pulling it all up and having all the lines replaced because the roots would destroy said lines. And I'm fairly certain that they would have the same issue on their side of the street as well. As for security of their kids, well, earlier this year, I had a guy twice in one day try to break down my front door, and I found out, I was just told that somebody that was arrested a month or so ago behind us on 36th and Robin is the same guy that tried to get into my house twice. So I fully understand why they need to have a taller fence for their kids and their property. Same thing when Scott and Tara mentioned a moose jumping a fence. Well, my fence is chest high, so it's right at 5 feet tall, and the moose jumped my fence and kicked my dog. So I fully support a taller fence, especially along Robin and then 36th, because I have one of the bus stops in question regarded in both the city's letter and then that city employee that made the letter. The bus stop behind my house clearly sees into my house. On their side of Robin, 36th Avenue is even higher, so just standing there, I can see completely over their 8-foot fence into their living room. So I get all of that. That's basically all I have to say.
Thank you. Anyone else? And state your name, spell it for the record.
Good evening. My name is Kathleen Adams, Kathleen, K-A-T-H-L-E-E-N, Adams, A-D-A-M-S. I live at 7613 Hennings. My property is 2 doors down, actually next to John Lime, and I'll read my statement first, then I'll go into extra. I'm in favor of granting this variance for 8-foot fence for the Henscheid family. Our property and their property on Scenic. Our neighborhood in Scenic Park, when the properties were built, this area was in the development stages. The 36th Avenue extension was created after this home was built. That extension took the place of the old Muldoon Road, and now the neighborhood is bound on the west side by the Patterson Street. When this development was permitted in Phase 1 of 1961, that road was actually Tudor Road. So the fence creates a safety barrier for their children from moose, bears, and human predators. We have several registered sex offenders in the area, and this fence gives the family peace of mind so their children can play freely in the backyard. The sex offenders actually almost made me not buy my home a year ago because of it, because they are so close. There are many examples of 8-foot fences within a 5-mile radius of our neighborhood. In some instances, the city or the DOT has installed those fences to reduce noise to the neighborhood and also to provide privacy for homeowners. Some examples are Lake Otis at Rogers Park, Northern Lights at Rogers Park, Lake Otis from Northern Lights going south around the back side of Sheldon Jackson Street properties, Old Muldoon Road surrounding the property on the corner of 36th and Old Muldoon. I disagree with the letter from Lynn McGee and his assessments of the impact of the bus stop across the street from the Henscheids. When standing at the bus stop on either side of 36th Avenue, you can see into their yard if the fence height were to be reduced. The aesthetics of the treed lot are not in question in this request for the variance. My property at 7613 Hennings also shares the back border of 36th Street. From the bus stop, you can see, from the sidewalk, and from the bus stop, you can see directly into my kitchen, my bedroom, and both of my bathroom windows. If you're in the bus, you get an even better view. So the 8-foot fence is really necessary, especially on the 36th Avenue side, because the land has actually been built up when they put that 36th Avenue extension in. So properties like mine and about 14 others actually are lower than the street itself. So we are very in view. If you look at page 22 of your packet, you can see the very back of their fence.
Okay, so you've hit the limit.
I did.
Does somebody want to let her finish her? Somebody please do that for me. Thank you, Commissioner McKee.
Okay.
I would like you to continue, please.
Thank you. On page 22 of your packet, you will see the very back of their fence. And you'll notice that this is taken from across the street, and you can still see into their yard. So I understand the variance I understand the rules of the game when it comes to what has been written in public code. However, this property and all the properties along 36, and there are about 12 to 14 of them that are their backyard set lower than what the street is, we are fair game. And we do, by the way, even with an 8-foot fence, in my instance, I could put a 12-foot fence at the back of my property and people would still be able to see from a bus.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Is there anyone else? Please state your name and spell it for the record.
My name is Martha Bolan, M-A-R-T-H-A-B-O-L-A-N. I live at 4341 Rendezvous, which is the next neighborhood over, but I do travel 36th Avenue a lot, taking my kids to the elementary school. And all of these good neighbors keep mentioning that if you're on the bus that you could see down. Well, I'm here to say that if you're in a normal vehicle, 36th Avenue is built up so high you could have a 16-foot fence and you could still see into that yard and all of those yards along there. I recognize that the city says that they try to reduce crime by having clear vision areas. In some cases, that's certainly true, but I noticed just down the street also on 36th Avenue at the storage place, the goal to reduce crime and break-ins in the storage is to keep things out of sight, and there is some method to that madness. And they do have a lot of projects going on in their yard. So what is one person's project is another person's eyesore, and if you were to take that fence down, people would be able to cherry pick what they wanted, come and get it, and it would be an eyesore to the neighbors in addition to that. So I feel that if you have them remove this, you will have an increase in crime because everything will be so readily available and so nicely displayed for the public. Thanks.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Doesn't appear to be. Thank you so much for your testimony. It looks like we have another person.
You're not done yet. My name's Kevin Chase. Who put this so low? Kevin Chase, K-E-V-I-N-C-H-A-S-E. I live at just down the street, about 3 or 4 houses down Robin Street, and I want to vote in favor here of keeping the fence as it is. I also received here from Scott and Tara, they had 7 letters from other neighbors written that weren't able to get it into the information here. They're all in favor of keeping the fence. I had arguments to each of the points that were written up in the Urban Design Commission proposal, and pretty much everybody's hit those arguments. The fence is appropriate. It is not an inappropriate, it's not an eyesore. It's made out of cedar, just like my fence and most of the other fences in the neighborhood. The traffic, I don't have the problem of being on 36, so I don't have the same thing, but when you drive down 36, as everyone else has stated, you can see right in from any vehicle or standing on the road. So these points are pretty much have all been spoken by other people. I do also want to say I read that same email from Lynn McGee, who wrote in as a senior plan reviewer from the right-of-way section. Didn't seem to mention any personal connection, but everything on this email is a personal attack. I count no less than 6 personal attacks against the Henshides that have nothing to do with a fence or a variance or anything like that. That's my my assessment of this email, is that it's not relevant. It's a personal issue. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Are there any questions of Mr. Chase? Looks like none.
Hey, if I have, can I have my minute 10 here for a moment?
Sure.
Okay. I think everyone speaking here kind of helps us to say the aesthetics that are mentioned multiple times on the report, I think they should be decided by the neighbors in the neighborhood, and I think it's pretty clear that the neighbors are in favor of it.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Hey. Make sure you state your name and spell it for the record.
Good evening. My name is Jerry Robinson. Jerry, Robinson. I'm Tara's father. I'm grandfather to 2 grandkids that play in this yard. This property is surrounded by streets on 3 sides. One of them is 36th Street, which is a collector. One of them is Robin Street, which may not be listed as a connector, but it's one of 2 ways in and out of that subdivision. And it's, so it's pretty hard to get any privacy without a fence to start out with. Everybody else has testified that the collector of 36th Street is higher than what the fence is in the back part of the property because of the topography. The front part of the property, which would be the front yard, there is 90 foot, it's approximately probably over 200 foot long on that front side. Most of that yard is open and exposed like the other yards are, with the exception of that about 80 to 90 foot of fence along Robin Street, which you can see coming from the east, coming from the east down 36th Street. So this fence does block the view, which you would see probably 80% of the yard if you're traveling west on 36th Street without this fence. I spent 3 years as assistant road superintendent and 6 years as a road superintendent of Valley County. And they hammered into my head, my first responsibility was for the health and safety of the people, my constituents of that county. I hope you guys take this into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, it does not appear that there is anyone else remaining. Is there anybody on the phone? Are we doing that still? Okay, no phone testimony. Okay. Okay, you may come up to the dais here and continue with your rebuttal if you'd like.
Robert Frost said, "Good fences make good neighbors." I've asked for permission to keep my good fence. I do fear for my kids, and I fear anything lower will not be safe. It also says in Union Code, as previously stated, 21.07.080.8H.3.A fences and secondary front setbacks that abut a street or arterial of greater classification may be up to 8 feet in height. There are no exceptions to that I can find in Muni Code. So by this code, we should be allowed, at least on 36, to have an 8-foot fence. You've heard from my neighbor who shares my backyard and their request to keep this 8-foot fence so that we are not looking into each other's houses. My house is elevated and I can see directly down in there, and it is nearly an 8-foot discrepancy between my patio, just my patio, not my windows, that is at ground level, and their yard. So without this fence, I would be able to see the entirety of their yard. I thank you for your time. I hope you take my concerns to heart, but I really just want to protect my kids, and I think that I should be entitled to the same privacy that the other people who have fences in my neighborhood have, as I cannot see into their yards. I know it says that you should have natural surveillance, but that is granted still, as you can still see into portions of my backyard from the street. But I am not able to see into theirs. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Staff, do you have a question for me, for the board, or a statement?
Madam Chair, I just wanted to clarify the code reference is Chapter 7, subsection 080H3A2, references secondary front yard setbacks that abut a street of arterial or greater classification. This section of East 36th Avenue is a Class 1C collector, which is a lower classification than either a minor or a major arterial, thus that section of code does not apply. So, thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the petitioner? Okay, seeing none. Oh, Commissioner Cash?
Yes, thank you. I don't know, petitioner, I don't know if it was you that mentioned the condition or the roads prior to East 36 being reinstated there or being built there. I think it was, someone did. Oh, I think I need to ask another of the public testifiers this question.
So you're someone who testified that the extension of 36th Avenue was...
Yes, my question is for that person, and I believe it is Ms. Bertha, where are you? Kathleen Adams. Oh, it's Kathleen Adams? Thank you.
Question to staff. So we did not ask Ms. Adams if she, this question, is this something we can ask now to have a member of the public come up and answer a question? Are you going to throw this back at me?
Through the chair, I would defer to the clerk on that question.
Thank you. Through the chair, I believe the public testimony was finished for them and no questions were asked. If staff could answer your question maybe, or not?
Perhaps I can direct it to you then, Mr. Yaley. Thank you. My question is regarding the elevated level of East 36 as it currently exists, and I was curious, was that level changed, altered from the previous street that was there?
Through the chair, I was not involved in that project. That was several years ago. It was also a different department that administered that project, but it is my understanding that when Old Muldoon was reconstructed and became East 36th Avenue, that grade change was, a grade change occurred and was raised.
Thank you.
To what extent, I don't know.
I understand. Thank you for your patience putting up with my question. Thank you. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Commissioner McKee?
I guess I'm going to follow Commissioner Cash's example and pose a question to staff, and that's, do we know what the height of the fence is relative to the center line of the road?
Through the chair, I do not.
Okay. Thank you.
Are there any questions for the petitioner or staff? Commissioner McKee, you have a question for the petitioner?
I do. Do you know what the height of your fence is relative to the center line of the road? And what I'm asking, in case you need clarification, is if this is the center line of the road and your fence is set here, if I were to take a straight measurement from the center line here to your fence, what's that height?
There is a picture in the original packet where the camera is literally sitting on the road, taking a picture of the fence.
We have that picture,
Okay.
and I'm just curious if, I mean, you'd have to shoot it with a level. Yeah.
I would have to shoot it with level, but I would say it's most likely within 3 inches one direction or the other.
Oh, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. Are we sure? Okay. Okay, thank you. I think we're done with the questions. Okay, the public hearing is now closed. I think we need to have a motion on the floor. No. Okay, we need a motion. Do we need more discussion? Can we get a motion? Awesome. Okay, we have a motion from Commissioner Clark. And it's seconded by Commissioner Hamilton. Commissioner Clark, would you please state your motion?
I move in case 2021-0060 to approve a variance from AMC 21.07.080H.3 maximum height to allow an 8-foot tall fence in the front and secondary setback of the north and east property boundaries, as well as within a side setback along the western property boundary, subject to conditions 1 through 4 shown on page 7 of the staff report.
Thank you, and we do have a second from Commissioner Hamilton. Would you care to speak to your motion, Commissioner Clark?
Yeah, I made the motion because we have to make a positive motion. I will not be supporting the motion. And I'll do deference to my dear friend Bertha Dozark. The reason we have these fence lines is fences do make good neighbors. That said, we're supposed to be neighborly to each other. We do not want to have walls between our neighbors. And I believe that's the reason for the fence height requirements. I can also see, having seen some fences in some areas, the outside of the fence gets overbuilt, and all of a sudden you have people living up against the side of the fence on the outside. So, as I said, I will not be supporting the motion.
Thank you. Commissioner Hamilton, would you like to speak to the second? Okay. What's that? Is there anyone who wishes to add additional findings for this motion on the floor? Okay. I think some of these findings could be found in the staff packet, so I'll add some findings here. So Title 21.03.240G, Item A, the proposed alternative achieves the intent of the subject design standard to the same degree or better than the subject standard. The standard is not met. Item B, the proposed alternative achieves the goals and policies of the comprehensive plan to the same or better degree than the subject standard. The standard is not met. Item C, the proposed alternative results in benefits to the community that are equivalent to or better than compliance with the subject standard. The standard is not met. To continue, so item D, the variance if granted will not adversely affect the use of adjacent property as permitted under this code. The standard is met. Item E, the variance if granted does not change the character of the zoning district where the property is located, is in keeping with the intent of the code and does not permit to a use not otherwise permitted. The standard is met. Persons with disabilities are provided with access as required. The standard is met. And G, the variance, if granted, does not adversely affect the health, safety, and welfare of the people in the municipality. The standard is partially met in that the fence is located in the right-of-way. Item H, this does not involve a sign, so that standard is met. Should I talk first then, as chair? Yeah. Okay, so, sorry, I'm not used to being the first one to speak. Usually I'm just here to push buttons and allow others to speak. I do not support I support the fence. So I don't think that you guys are, what you're doing is adversely affecting the community. I do not think that the fence height at 8 feet will adversely impact the health, safety, and welfare of the community. I think, in fact, it's going to allow you to have some privacy, protect your kids in a neighborhood that's obviously got some issues. So I will not be supporting the vote motion as stated. Oh, in the positive. I will be supporting the motion in the positive. I will not support, not supporting the motion. So the motion on the floor is in the positive, and I intend to support that motion. The motion on the floor is positive. That's the confusing part. So a yay is in favor of the 8-foot fence. Yes. Correct. Is there anyone else who wishes to add findings or speak to the motion on the floor?
Madam Chair, point of order.
Yes.
I'd just
Young.
like to clarify, depending upon for or against the variance request, the findings that were stated were going through staff's findings, whether the standard was or was not met. If someone intends to support this motion, we should have findings that go against staff's findings and find that every standard is met.
Okay.
And they should go through those standards and state why, to put those on the record and also help draft up a resolution supporting or adopting the decision that's made here tonight. So.
Okay, I'm going to do that. I do believe, so in findings for 21.03.240G approval criteria, Part A, the proposed alternative achieves the intent of the subject design standard to the same or better degree. Staff says that there was not sufficient justification by the applicant. I do not agree. I believe that with the photos and the information provided by the testimony that we have this evening, the testimony that we had in our packet, and also especially the topography. I really do feel like this fence is not out of the realm of reality for the location. As far as B, the standard, the proposed alternative achieves the goals and policies of the comprehensive plan to the same or better degree than subject standard. The standard is not meant by staff because they say placing an overheight fence within the front and side setbacks of this single-family neighborhood appears out of place when comparing the aesthetics of an overheight fence to surrounding properties. In that statement, I do not agree. I believe that testimony here this evening has spoken otherwise, that in fact there are several fences in the neighborhood that are 8 feet or higher, and it's not out of the ordinary of the aesthetic. I've also heard, and not to be negative to the property owners, but that there may be a request for fencing said items in your yard. So I think that there's a positive there. They also, not only to protect those materials, but also to improve the aesthetic. As far as the request conflicting with Policy 5, I think that that falls in line with my statement that it's not out of place. And I do think that the justification has been sufficiently provided by the applicant. Item C, that the proposed alternative results in benefits to the community that are equivalent to or better than compliance. This, with respect to this statement in the staff packet, this has the potential to negatively impact property owners within the surrounding neighborhood by encumbering public spaces with imposing structures. We have heard from 10 people this evening, 11 people total, that we have 23 that we've not seen that have perhaps signed a petition in favor, are surrounding neighbors. And those property owners are not negatively impacted according to their testimony. And has also been stated here in the staff packet, the height of the fence does not appear necessary to accomplish the intended goal of providing both a physical and visual barrier. I believe the topography indicates otherwise. As far as item G, the fence being within the right-of-way, I'm under the understanding that the applicant will be relocating outside of the right-of-way. And I think that's all I have at this point. If there's no other findings, I think we need to move to a vote.
No. There we go. There, I cancel my.
Okay.
Ms. Cash? Yes. Ms. McKee?
Yes.
Mr. Clark?
No.
Ms. Gordy?
Yes.
Ms. Folland?
Yes.
Ms. Hamilton?
Yes.
And Chair Ream?
Yes.
Thank you.
Motion passes. Thank you. Thank you. Have a great evening. Okay, we have one more case on the public hearing agenda this evening. We have case 2021-0061. Petitioner is the Municipality of Anchorage Parks and Recreation, a request for trail review for the Chugach Foothills Connector Phase 2. May we have staff's presentation?
Yes, thank you, Chair. The Chugach Foothills Connector Phase 2 is an approximately 1 mile separated, non-motorized, multi-purpose path. Phase 1 of this project was constructed in 2015, and it connected Clutona Drive to Regal Mountain Drive, so that's along the curve area of the Tudor Muldoon curve. This project would extend the trail westward. It would connect from the Tudor Muldoon curve to other pathways at Tudor Road and the Campbell Airstrip Road. The pathway is proposed to run through an adjacent far north bicentennial park and parallel to East Tudor Road. It would be south of East Tudor Road. The pathway would include a spur to Benny Benson Secondary School, as well as a spur to Regal Mountain Drive. There's currently not a sidewalk or pathway along the south side of East Tudor Road. The official Streets and Highways Plan classifies East Tudor Road as a major arterial. This proposed pathway passes through parcels that are owned by the Municipality of Anchorage. They are all zoned Public Lands and Institutions, or PLI. The land use plan designates these areas as a park or natural area, community facility or institution, or other open space. This project was presented to the Planning and Zoning Commission as an informational item in June. The Urban Design Commission, according to code, holds a public hearing on this application and will actually approve with conditions, or reject the application. The pathway design was chosen because it does not have utility conflicts. It ties into the existing non-motorized pathway network and institutions. It provides the user with a safe and quiet experience, and it would keep it separate from East Tudor Road. The on-grade gravel pathway is supposed to be 8.5 feet in width with 2-foot shoulders on each side. There would be 2 boardwalk sections. This design meets criteria in the Municipality of Anchorage Design Criteria Manual. The trail would also have a viewing area just before a longer section of boardwalk. The pathway has 2 different vertical builds, so the eastern part traverses wetlands, and the western part is on upland, so there's two different vertical designs of the trail. The application included an in-depth summary of plan conformance. I'll just highlight a couple that I put into a table in my staff report. The Far North Bicentennial Park Trail Improvements Plan in 2011 proposed a highly developed class trail south of Tudor Road in the vicinity of this project. And then the draft non-motorized plan, this plan is not adopted yet, but it's in draft form as of 2021. It shows a map for demand analysis, and it shows that there's a high demand for active transportation facilities along Tudor Road and also along Muldoon and the curve connecting Tudor Road and Muldoon Road. This draft plan also shows that Tudor Road is a higher stress corridor, which supports the wider separation of the trail from the road. In the comments, there's a couple that I've incorporated into conditions of approval. And with that, I recommend approval of the trail review application, subject to the petitioner's application, narrative submittals, and plans on file, except with two conditions. One, to ensure signage is in place for both trail users and motorists at trail intersections, particularly with Campbell Airstrip Road and Regal Mountain Drive. And two, to continue coordination with traffic engineering to discourage unintentional mid-block crossings. I'll note that the petitioner is on the Teams chat, so I can answer questions. I'd defer more technical questions to the project team. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions of staff? Okay, and we have a petition. Oh, we have a petitioner on Teams. May you please state your name and spell it for the record?
Sure, thank you. For the presentation, I'd just like to quickly share my screen, and then this is Juan Lee, through the chair. My name is spelled Z-A-N, last name is spelled L-E, for the record, and I'm with R&M Consultants, representing the Parks and Recreation Department on this Chugach Foothills Connector Phase 2 project.
Excellent.
Sorry.
And so you do have 10 minutes. How much would you like to reserve for rebuttal, if any?
I would like to reserve the remainder of my presentation, after my presentation is done, for the rebuttal.
Okay.
All right, so thanks again. I just have my screen up just to show the project alignment and corridor, just have a visual as we're talking. With me, I have my project team, Taylor Keegan, who's the project manager for the Parks and Recreation Department on this project. Alex Reed is also with us. He's the project manager on the Department of Transportation side, as well as Noah King, who is our project engineer and consultant coordinator for the Department of Transportation. I also have Joe Hordazzi, civil engineering lead with R&M, and Mark Rudiger is also here with R&M to help us answer any questions you may have later. First of all, I'd just like to thank staff for the project introduction and conformance analysis with all the requirements, conformance to plans and Title 21. And I want to add that we agree with the department's recommendations in the staff report. So this staff planner Elizabeth covered it, but this is a new non-motorized multi-use connection. It is community initiated. So I want to thank the Bongas of Scenic Foothills Community Council. They really were the advocates on the citizen side to get this project going, the first phase and the second phase. It is a community-led project that started with volunteer labor, Park Foundation challenge grants, and youth employment and parks for construction in phase 1. This project, this connection, is really critically important locally, as Elizabeth stated earlier, because it does provide a much-needed connection on the south side of Tudor Road along the Muldoon Curve to Campbell Airstrip Road, connecting the Scenic Foothills neighborhood, Regal Mountain residents there with Campbell Airstrip Road and other trails. And Anchorage-wide, this is a critical missing piece in the connection to Campbell Creek Trail. So with this piece, this missing link being built, residents can go from Muldoon all the way to Campbell Lake, or go north all the way to downtown using only pathways and trails and avoiding actually biking or walking on roadways. So it's it's kind of the last missing piece, and so it has this region-wide importance as well. Elizabeth mentioned that the trail will provide the ADA connection spur to Benny Benson School, which is also a trailhead and has adequate parking. It's currently being used as parking for other trails in the area, and so that is a good spur for it, as well as providing that grade that's important for this federally funded project that is required to be ADA accessible. And just to touch on the fact that because it is federally funded through AMAT, through the Transportation Alternatives Program, the Department of Transportation is managing the construction as well as the NEPA environmental document process, and they will certify the right-of-way as well, just to ensure that all the grant compliances are met. A couple unique features of the project: it started out as a UAA, senior engineering class project, and they did the first kind of solutions to how you could connect this project, and so we're taking it from there. So just want to give a shout out to them because they really did the first initial analysis of the project. And the other unique feature, besides being the missing connection and regionally important for Anchorage residents for both transportation and non-motorized transportation and recreation, is that all of the alignment here for this project traverses publicly owned land, agency-owned land, and the Department of Transportation right away. So it's kind of unique in that sense that we won't need to acquire any sort of private property or easements for that. And with that, I want to thank you and save my remaining time for rebuttal, and we are available for questions.
Are there questions? Commissioner McKee?
I have a couple of questions regarding the trail being ADA compliant. There are several runs that are exceeding the grade of 5%. Is that going to be revised in final design if this trail is to be ADA compliant?
Through the chair, Commissioner McKee, that is an excellent question. So I mentioned the Benny Benson spur earlier. That portion there is the ADA trailhead. That is ADA compliant trailhead to access the trail. The other spur, which intersects with Campbell Airstrip Road, is above the 5%. You were correct in that, and that requires a variance. But that portion does not meet ADA.
I'm
so
sorry,
we have that additional
I need
spur.
to stop you because we can't understand what you're saying. I'm not sure whether maybe you're speaking too close to the microphone or if volume needs to be adjusted, but we're having an incredible difficult time understanding what you're saying.
Oh, I'm sorry. Is this better?
No.
Can you hear me now?
That's a little better.
Okay.
Because
I just got closer to the mic.
I mean,
Is that better?
ADA compliance requires that no length of run exceeds 5%. A 50 feet of run can exceed 6 to 8% with a landing, and then a 30-foot maximum run at 9 to 10%, again with a landing. And there are several segments within your proposed trail vertical alignment that exceed those standards.
Before you respond, Mrs. Lee, I would just recommend maybe also speaking just a little bit slower. That might help us. I know you want to meet that time, but with these questions, that would help us a little bit, I think.
Can I just quickly do a mic check just to make sure you can hear me?
I understood that there.
Okay, great. So maybe I will ask Joe or Mark if you're on the line to help me with that question since I'm having a little technical difficulty.
Hey, this is Joe Horzdowski with R&M, JOEHORAZDOVSKY. I believe our intention with the ADA route, as the beginning of our ADA route would be starting at the pathway spur at Benny Benson, and then everything to the east of there would meet that 5% or less slope, whereas the spur that ties into the Campbell Airstrip Road would just be a convenient spur. that has sections that are greater than that 5%.
I guess my concern is with the intent for the trail to be a gravel surface, that slopes that are even at 5% are going to be difficult for somebody to navigate that may have mobility concerns. So it's just something I'm asking you to consider in your final vertical alignment, that if there's the possibility to either maybe consider paving the surface so that it's more accessible, or modifying your vertical profile so that it's more accessible. And then
Thank you very much. Yeah, that is very much understood. Our decision to have it be gravel at this point was influenced by the construction over the wetland portion, and the knowledge that would have some consolidation. So the decision to leave it gravel was to just account for that, and possibly a future project would pave it. And also, just kind of getting through the surrounding topography and avoiding utility conflicts was what drove some of those 5% slopes to exist.
So I guess I have another question then. You're already placing fill in the wetland, so the footprint of the impact of the wetland is what is significant, not necessarily whether it's a gravel or paved finished surface.
Yes, but the construction method was just for to allow it to consolidate throughout the course of the construction, and then possibly if it were to consolidate further in the future, it would be easier to regrade.
And then my other, and it's not a question, it's a suggestion, that kiosks incorporate indigenous names and traditional information in compliance with Executive Order 300.
That sounds good. Thank you for that comment, and we will note that.
Are there any other questions for the petitioner? Seeing none, we will now open the hearing to public testimony. Is there anyone on the, no one? No one's testifying, okay. Okay, so would the petitioner like to use their remaining time?
Through the chair, this is Wanley. I have nothing further to add unless Taylor or Joe wanted to add any closing remarks.
Okay. Does anyone else from the petitioner's team wish to add anything? Hearing none. If there are no more questions of the staff or the petitioner, the public hearing will be closed. Okay. So may we have a motion? We have a motion from Commissioner McKee. Would you please state your motion?
In case 2021-0061 to approve the application for trail review, Chugach Foothills Connector Phase 2, subject to conditions A, 1, and 2 shown on page 5 of the staff report.
Thank you. And we do have a second from Commissioner Gordy. Commissioner McKee, would you please speak to your motion?
I'm sorry, it's taking me a moment because I put all of my paperwork back together. I am in favor of approval with conditions 1 and 2 stated by the staff. The department recommends the approval of the trail review application. This approval is subject to the petitioner's application, narrative, submittals, and the following plans on file at the planning department, except as modified by this condition of approval. Ensure signage is in place for both trail users and motorists at trail intersections with Campbell Airstrip Road and Regal Mountain Drive. Continue coordination with the traffic engineering to discourage unintentional mid-block crossings.
Thank you. And Commissioner Gordy, would you care to speak to your second?
I would just like to say that I think this is a really well put together packet. I think this is a great project, and thank you to the design team.
Is there anyone who wishes to add findings of fact? I'll go ahead and add some findings that this project is consistent with the draft non-motorized plan that's not yet adopted, but is in draft form as of 2021. It is consistent with the Anchorage 2040 land use plan, the goals and policies for infrastructure, land use, accessible land use, and open space and greenways. The project is consistent with the Anchorage Bowl Park Natural Resource and Recreation Facility Plan from 2006 for non-motorized links between residential areas, parks, and schools, goals for diverse access to recreation, schools, natural areas, neighborhoods, community facilities, economic benefits of parks and recreation, system of year-round trails, and a pedestrian-oriented system of greenway linkages. It is also consistent with the Far North Bicentennial Park Trail improvements, which proposed highly developed class trail south of Tudor in the vicinity of this project, and the Northeast Park Trail connector listed as a proposed new trail. And it is also consistent with the Anchorage Bicycle Plan from 2010, recommendation for a separated path along Tudor from Campbell Airstrip to Pioneer Drive, and a multi-use separated path in the vicinity of this project proposed along Tudor. It's also consistent with the Anchorage 2020 Anchorage Bowl Plan, goals for land use, design, and environment, and public improvement and services. Policies 38 and 48 related to the connectivity between neighborhoods and between local activity centers, and the area-wide trails plan from 1997, which has 4 goals, or 4 marked notes here: goals for trails to be used for transportation, provide outdoor recreation for a variety of people, reduce crime, and strengthen the community. It speaks to the policies for geographically distributed, safe, and convenient access to wide-ranging trail opportunities, and the policies for a trail system that is integral to the transportation network and links neighborhoods, schools, parks, and areas of public activity. And the map of proposed project shows a multi-use paved trail parallel to Tudor Road on its south side, and I do concur with these, that does meet all of these in the staff packet. That's all I have for findings. If there's no other findings or discussion, the motion on the floor is to approve case 2021-0061, the application for trail review, Chugach Foothills Connector Phase 2, subject conditions A, 1, and 2, shown on page 5 of the staff report. May we have a vote? The motion passes. Thank you so much, Ms. Lee, and the rest of the petitioners for spending this time this evening in creating this fantastic connector. Have a great night.
Thank you.
Okay, so that's the last public hearing. We have no other items officially on the agenda. I do have one thing I'd like to just discuss on record here as the chair, and that is we need to remember what our purview is as the Urban Design Commission when a case comes before us. I think a lot of times we have a tendency to go outside our lane, so to speak, and officiate on things that are not within our jurisdiction to approve. Most recently, and I don't really want to discuss it here unless I don't really want to discuss it here, right? When we are approached with something that requires further review down the line with more stringent or other review, we need to make sure that we stay in the box that is what our approval is. And I won't speak to it this evening, but we'll speak more on this when we can. But I think you all know what I'm discussing here. Just remind yourselves of what we're here for, and it's not to do the jobs of the other boards and commissions. So that's all I had to say. If you have anything you wanted to say or ask, please feel free. Otherwise, we are done this evening. And if we could get a motion to adjourn. We have a motion from Commissioner McKee and a second from Commissioner Cash. Thanks, you guys. Have a great evening.